This is Lizzie from Let Zoe Spoil You.
And Sagira from Sagira Salutes You. And together, we are Newbie versus Weeaboo. Sagira, Newbie.
Lizzie, a Weeaboo.
It's Newbie versus Weeaboo.
Ahoy!
Heidi, hi.
Hello, and welcome back to Newbie versus Weeaboo. It's been a time.
Yes, a little bit of a break. Life was being very lifey.
Yes, indeed. Lots has gone on. Much things outside of the podcasting world, such as housing and vaccinations and life slowly getting back to normal.
Yeah, it's been fun. Vaccinations were fun. I don't want to ever do that ever again. I was not a big fan of my side effects. Yeah, work and then housing markets and stuff, and then DIY stuff, because like you realise that you haven't done anything or got anyone over to look at anything, and like, you know, there's a door falling off a hinge or the extraction fan isn't working, and I'm like, I don't like adulting. I want to be a nerd. I don't want to adult.
Exactly. So if you have been waiting for the next podcast, we apologize for the wait. However, if you are listening to this in the future where you can listen to one after the other, ignore us. There's been no break. It's all been good. Go on in, Lizzie.
Right. So, Sagira, what do you think of the movie today?
My synopsis for this is: two worlds come to war as their peace treaty is ending. Will two kick-ass lovers find a way to bring them all together with sexy results?
That is such a lovely description for Wicked City. What a way to describe Wicked City. That's not what I would have said. I would have said, in this weird horror movie where everybody wants to bang the woman in various ways, they bang the woman in various ways, and then demons, and then they are happy. It's just like, because there's a lot of history, obviously, to this film, and I remember when I was rewatching it, and my husband wanted to see it, because obviously we saw it when it originally came out, and we're like, this is going to be something a bit different for Neek. I'm not sure how she's going to take it, because it's been a while since I've watched it, and it is very much a product of its time and the genre it is made from. It is very, very sexy bang time with not a lot of consent going on.
Yes, there is a trigger warning for this film, I have to say. And a lot of flashing lights as well. So if you do go and see Wicked City, triggers and flashing lights, warning. But I wouldn't say not watch it. It was I don't want to say enjoyable. It was watchable.
Okay. Well, I will say it's enjoyable because I'm dark and I like this. Not this genre, that makes it sound like a complete pervert. But no, okay, so the history. Obviously, we're still reviewing the films of Yoshiaki Kawajiri. We've done like his early work where he co-directed, and then his short to show off his particular style. Because obviously in Lensman, you didn't really get a complete like idea of what his style is. Then in the short, you got more of an idea of what his style is. Like, it's very dark, a lot of shadowing. And then in this film, you can tell it's his film.
Lensman seems like a lifetime ago now.
Yes.
It seems like we watched it so long ago. It's like, oh yes, Lensman was a film that we watched, yes.
And obviously, like, when I introduce you to Lensman, and then I go, okay, now it's time for Wicked City, you know, the PG-rated Star Wars... Well, not Star Wars inspired, because actually it's based on the novels that came out way before Star Wars, but that kind of, like, sci-fi fantasy adventure to very much something that is an 18 rating, and even like God knows how many. Well, it came out in 1987. I can't be bothered to do the maths. I like to pretend that was like 20 years ago, but someone will turn around and go, no, you're older than that. It's like, it still needs its 18 certificate. But it came out in 1987, and this film was part of a boom that was known as the ultraviolent. So there was a genre of anime called ultraviolence. And strangely enough, these films were all uber ultra-violent. A lot of violence, a lot of blood, a lot of sex, a lot of non-consensual sex. It was nasty. And it came out, it got imported to the UK just at the tail end of the 80s and the early 90s. So it came kind of after the UK video nasties gained notoriety and popularity. Then this film came out with a couple of classics like Urasoki Doji that will prep you before I watch that one with you. And they came out and people had a hissy fit in the UK when these movies came out because they were just like, oh my goodness, it's nothing but, you know, misogyny and violence against women and horrific violence against everybody. And oh my God, these are cartoons. What happens if our children see them? Not understanding that anime in Japan wasn't made for children. Like it's like anything else. They have ratings, and depending on what age you are, depends on whether or not you can see them. But people just saw cartoons and thought, "Oh my God, our poor children." It's like it's got an 18 rating for a reason, people. Now,
we have that in conventions sometimes, don't we? Because I remember a convention that we went to, and the parent actually came up to you because you had so much anime on the table, and she said, "I bought this for my child. Is it appropriate?" And you were kind of like, not quite yet, because like the parent, as you say, parents just see a cartoon and think, oh yeah, it's for kids. But yeah, anime is in such a broad range of what comes out of it that you can never be sure who it's made for. You know, it's really very confusing to people who aren't into anime.
Yeah, I mean, the wonderful thing is like we've got quite a strong and set rating systems in the UK. The BVFC is there for a reason. So I generally figured if you're buying a DVD with an 18 certificate on it, no, you shouldn't let your 10-year-old watch it. That should be true of anything, just because it's animated. So when Wicked City first came, and it came out with a host of other films of similar, it got so much like bad press and flack. And all of us that found it were like, what is this? This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. This is one of the first animes I ever watched. And I just remember sitting there going, it's beautiful. I also I've rewatched it a couple of times. And I remember when I rewatched it a few years ago, going, this is a little more non-consensual than I remember. I think some of my I think I first watched it when I was 15, 16, and my brain then had just glossed over certain scenes, wasn't quite understanding what was going on. I also have to admit that I bought because it only came out this year, end of last year, the special edition. So it's all like digitally remastered. They'd cleaned up some of it. So some of the scenes that kind of been in shadows and a bit like dodgily animated were perfectly cleaned up. And it's like, you can definitely tell what's going on in that scene now, when before it was a little bit like, what's happened to Macie? She's chained. I can't quite. Are there people there with her? What's going on? Now you're like, oh no. I can see what's going on now. That is definitely cleared up. Although the restored digitally remastered version is gorgeous. Like, it's hard to describe this film and go, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, knowing some of the content. But I'll go back to like the journey of Yoshiaki Kawajiri himself. In that short, you saw his style was heavy shading, the dark lines. He's got quite like masculine type characters, and there's the way he uses lighting. Like there's a lot of like the entire background will be one colour with like a darker silhouette on front or a flash of like beautiful light on it. So from going to this, like compared to some of the animated films and the anime that I've showed you, this has a very distinct style that I'm hoping that you saw was more unique than some of the other stuff like we've watched so far.
It was different. Could definitely. It made you uncomfortable, in a way that other ones haven't made me feel. But at the same time, it wasn't for the sake of it. You know, they didn't put it in there just to be like, oh, let's have some sexy time. Oh, let's put something in that's awkward just to make the audience feel something. It was part of the story. You know, it was part of that world, and that's why you could carry on watching, because you knew that it wasn't something that had been just dropped in for the sake of having something a bit like edgy.
Yeah. And it's like there was a lot of films that came out at this time that did do it for the edgy, and obviously like the hardcore ultraviolet hentai was very prevalent at this time. And their films, some of them I've seen, some of them I care not for, because I don't really watch anything that has too much like non-consensual acts with women and stuff. I know I'm a yaoi fan, and that's a whole different genre. But this one, the reason why this one I wasn't like, oh, this is disturbing and icky, is because there's such a visual style to it, but also the things are within the narrative. If you think of some of like, there's a French film called Irreversible, very famous for a very uncomfortable scene with Monica Bellucci. And normally I avoid those kind of films. I avoid films like I Spit on Your Grave and Baze-Moi. But Irreversible, it was so relevant to the plot and the other acts. It was part of the story. I will say that this, when it comes to those things, this is Yoshiaki Kawajiri's most sexual. It never gets as sexual as this. There are other sex scenes in other films, but this one was like, he went hardcore in this one, and then the journey kind of changed as his films go on. But I just think I love his character designs. You will always tell a Yoshiaki Kawajiri film or a film that he's worked on because of his unique character designs. It's the way the eyes work and the eyelashes, and his female characters are gorgeous.
It did feel like it was more mature. Like you, like in a lot of animes, you always have that one cutesy character, the young girl, you know, and all that. But even in this, like the first girl in it, you could tell that she was younger, but she still looked mature. She looked like an older young person. Do you know what I mean? It's you don't have to look like a schoolgirl to show that you're young. You can be young with a mature face. I don't say an oxymoron, but at the same time, I did feel it was a more mature type of anime.
Yeah. So this one's definitely firmly made for adults in the adult market. And as like a consenting adult watching it, I think it's, yes, the plot is a little generic, especially after watching these films for years. At the time, I was like, oh my goodness, like it's the Macie world and like demons versus humans. It's like, you know, as I say, nearly 30 years later, originality doesn't hold up as much with the plot. It's like there's a man who's human, there's a woman who's demon, and together they must learn to work together and fall in love to like help the world come together and mend the problems between the demon world and the human world. Also, it's very much like some of the staples it put in there exist now. Like the Macie world, which is the demon world, exists in kind of like pocket dimensions and an alternate like phased reality to ours. That mythology from like yokai culture is in here. It's just like more urbanized and more modern yokai. They are demons and they're from this alternate, and I like that mythology stays true. I love the monster designs. The monster designs are really original. Although the guy with penis fingers always creeps me out because I'm just like, those are weird. And Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman, to this day, still terrifies me. She moves and she walks and even she dies. Like, they got, what would a creepy Spider-Woman be like? Perfectly down, because, Jesus, she's a creepy character.
Yeah, she did look like something out of a Asian horror movie, like with the long black hair and the heavy fringe. Yeah, she was definitely something from The Ring.
Yeah, nightmare fuel.
Yeah. She crawled out of that well with her spider like abilities and came to haunt your dreams.
Yeah. To this day, I'm just like, it's like, listen, after the first encounter when she escapes off the balcony and she runs, but she runs like a spider and it's so fast and so scuttly and like, and you're just like, no, you're creepy. Any sex appeal you might have is gone now because you are terrifying. Yeah, the monster designs are great. I think they're still original. And also, it's one of the first examples of Erogigi, which is like pervert old man. And it's just like, oh, the pervert old man character. He's going to turn up a fair few times over the next films.
Yeah, because you did say, like, when we watched Lensman, there was the little old man in that, and you were like, that's a big trope in these kind of films. There's always that little old man who's a bit frisky and, you know, kind of the comedy person. Yeah. And yeah, it was very true for this. But we'll get to the characters in just a moment. Something that I did like in terms of the aesthetic of it is I remember this from when I was younger and used to watch some anime. But when they have like a shot and it's static, there's nothing moving. All it is a camera panning to this long scene of, say, like at the beginning, there's the traffic. It's just pans all the traffic that's not moving, and you got sound effects, but it makes it feel busy and it makes it feel like it's moving without actually anything happening. And I think they're very good at doing that in these kind of films, just making it such a simple shot, but so much is going on and you can interpret a lot of the atmosphere at that moment.
The world building is fantastic. As you say, they pan over and you can feel that this is going to be set in an urban scape. It's also going to be in some of the like more risque areas of an urban scape, especially this one. There's a lot of like the sex worker clubs and that kind of industry representation. And also that, the colour schemes, so dark, urban, slightly dodgy area.
And as always, they have the neon lights, which I love. I love the effect of the neon lights. Using lighting, something that I really liked was at the end when she was crying and her tears were luminescent. They were really bright tears. And I was just like, how do you draw that? That's amazing. I'd love to be able to draw luminescent tears. That's so clever.
Yeah, because we're in the days before CGI or cell shading. This was this was done, this is traditional animation. And it's so beautiful. I mean, I love the character designs, I love the backgrounds, but it's so beautiful. He uses the black and the blue tones, and then there's always a shocking neon light or a shocking red light. Like when you first meet Macie, I'll always remember that, of how her eyes are illuminated only by the neon reflecting off her like claws. And it's just such a striking image. And the fact that even though they've got short hair, there's so much movement in the hair. And you can just feel how much there is so much movement and life in this film.
You see that very much in the scene in the hotel where he bursts through the door and all the wood is moving in slow motion and then her hair's moving in slow motion. Like that is a really good example of what you're talking about. So let's move on to characters. So first we have Tucky. Our ladies' man, our confident and charismatic gentleman who's a real go-getter, and he kind of talks to us like he's the narrator, doesn't he? It's like he knows we're there watching. And I just like it how he has that scene at the beginning, the sexy almost porn scene, and then he gets attacked by a spider lady with teeth in vagina. And
vagina dentate.
And then he just goes back to work like nothing happened. It's like, oh, so this is a common occurrence in your world, is it? Like, he's like, I work in electrics. It's like, what the hell is going on? And then eventually comes out with, I'm part of the Black Guard. And you're like, okay, well, that explains more to what's going on. But to start with, you're like, this is just a regular dude. Like, what?
Yeah, he's just a salary man that picked up a spider woman and nearly got like his penis chomped off and then just went back to the day job going, oh, last night was a bit rough.
Yeah, exactly. It was like,
because he's got an ache in his shoulder, and they were like, "Oh dear, your Playboy lifestyle catching up to you," and he's like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, very entertaining. And then it's like, "Yes, we have a partner for you. It's a woman," and it's like, "Okay, yeah, all right, we know what's going to happen here." Blah 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 blah. The ladies' man gets paired with a woman. Blah blah blah. Obvious what's going to happen. Her name is Macie, and she's straight talking, obnoxiously perfect. And she's from the black space, so she's from the other world.
They call it the black space in the dub.
They do. They call it the black space.
It's not the black space. They call it the demon world.
It's called the black space. They say it many times.
Yeah, the Macie, the demon world, because she's a demon and everyone else is a demon, so they come from the demon world. Or the other side. They say that a lot, the other side.
They said black space. So I can only tell you what they told me. And then, yes, she's got, like I said before, like the women in this, they look quite much more mature. So she had the smaller lips, the shorter hair. She looked like a badass, basically. Yeah. Like she looked like she could look after herself. And she likes the bad boys. Because every time it's like some guy turned up, she's like, yeah, dated him. Yeah, dated him. Yeah, we were together. It's like, girl, can you not see that you're picking the wrong men? Yes, okay, they're all demons, but still.
Yeah, but she said, like, her boyfriend, like, he used to be a good guy until he was brainwashed by the demon terrorist faction. So he changed. He was nice when she first was with him.
But yeah, so their relationship blossoms and grows and they fall in love. And yeah, as with most animes, too fast. Like, obviously, if it's a manga or something, you can take your time. But with this, it's like, hey, I'm a playboy who plays by his own rules. I don't need a woman in my life. Oh, I fell in love with this woman who's not a woman.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you fell in love over what, 2 days? Like, seriously,
It's like 24 hours, because I was listening to it. It's like the treaty's in 24 hours. This takes place over one night.
Exactly.
And I was like, woo! They really needed to like make sure they got to the like, and now you're in love.
Yeah, exactly. So it would have been nicer if we could have played that out a bit longer, but of course we can't, because otherwise that would take much longer. It'd end up being a Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
So we kind of need to squish it down, like with most animes. Then we have our dirty old man, Giuseppe, the typical Asian name.
He's not Asian. He's from
He's
Europe.
not Asian. Is he really? Because he doesn't look European.
Well,
with the long moustache.
I know, he looks like, I don't know. He's like 200 years old. He's obviously travelled, but he came from Europe.
Well, he's the quirky old man, a little sexual deviant. They put the dopey music over the top of him to show, hey, it's the comedy. And
he's just a dirty, dirty bastard.
He is. And they also make him out to be selfish. So when Taki is like, I'm going to save her, and he's like, no, stay with me. And it's like, okay, you're a very selfish old man as well, but it's all a ploy. He's testing them. Plot twist after plot twist. But yeah, so we have the two sides who are trying to fight each other, and the peace treaty is coming to the end. And they take... Now, I tried to look at this in the subtitles, but it pretty much said the same thing. Potato Hotel.
I mean,
they go to the Potato Hotel.
Is that what it was called? I can't even remember the name.
That's what it said in the subtitles.
I don't know. I didn't even register the name of the hotel.
But at first he was like, hello and welcome to the Potato Hotel. And I was like, did I hear that correct? The Potato Hotel. So I put the subtitles on, and then it was the Tato Hotel. And I was like, Tato, taters, yeah, potato, and then Potato Hotel again. I'm like, okay. Yeah, so if anyone knows if it is or not called Potato Hotel, please tell me, because I was just like, is it the Potato Hotel? I have no idea. Don't know why I was so hung up on the name.
I just glossed over it. It was like they go to the hotel. I didn't even know the name of the hotel.
Potato Hotel. But then you've got a character in there, Hodgins, is it his name?
I think so.
Something like that. But yeah, he seems like he's an important character, but yet we only see him for moments because he's good friends with Taki. He knows a lot of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a hotel used by Blackguard to keep guests safe. So he works at the hotel, and he's kind of like these wonderful, like, combat butlers. So obviously Taki knows him from like combat butlers is a thing.
I believe you.
He knows Taki from various jobs of working there. So I think if this was like a series or something, you'd probably would have found out more backstory about like it. But there was not time. This has an hour and 20 to kind of, get it done. So it's like we go to the hotel, the combat butler's there, they're friends, they've obviously worked together before. He's got a fake arm. Yeah.
His arm gets blown. It's like, oh my gosh, he's going to die. And he's like, it's fine. It was the artificial one. It's like, what?
I kind of figured it was by the fact that weird knives came out of it.
Well, I just assumed that he was equipped to the nines. You know what these things are like, where they're just like, yes, I'm going to transmogrify my body so that it's a weapon.
I always get amused by that scene because I'm like, obviously the animators could not be asked to animate blood. So they needed a reason why he wasn't bleeding out on the floor and then just got up again. So they threw in a line, because it's in the original Japanese. He's like, yeah, don't worry, it's my fake arm. And Taki's like, cool, I'm off.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I did like that scene where the two of them are playing chess. I thought it was just a nice, calm moment where you could stop and try and catch up with what's been going on. Because a lot happens in that first bit. Yeah. It's like, there's a spider lady, and then he's a blackguard. He meets the lady blackguard, and he gets attacked in the airport by two guys. And
that airport scene is so great. The airport scene, the way, the use of colours of like the close-ups, the running, and then the other two run, and then it's that example of like they completely like black out or white out the backgrounds, and then you see just people's faces, but with the shadows, and then obviously like Macie's like claw moment. It's animated and stylized so well.
And you have the clip-clopping of the very heavy shoe, as always.
Yes.
It's like, what are you wearing? Have you got tap shoes on? And then it had like the Batman style as they're punching each other. Like all those great sound effects to show we're having a fight. But yeah, it was a really good scene. It was kind of out of nowhere because there's two guys following him, but you weren't entirely sure who was following him. And then suddenly things come out of their bodies, and that's another thing that I like, is that every demon is different. Like each one has its own unique transformation, so you never know how they're going to attack and how this person's going to react to that.
Yeah.
So especially when the guy was squeezing him, it was like, how is he going to get out of this one? A woman obviously saves him. Obviously, it's always a woman's job. But yeah, I mean, music, I enjoyed the cool jazz piano. For me now, 80s anime is not an 80s anime without the cool jazz piano.
Okay.
Of some sort. It needs that kind of lounge music somewhere. Lots of plot twists, which kept you on your toes, because I had no idea about Giuseppe. I didn't know he was going to be some psychic martial artist.
Yep. Who was secretly sent to protect them all along. He was, he was, but then you look back at it, and all those moments with that weird little bit of electricity, like helps him out of little situations. You're like, that's what the weird little electricity is.
Yeah, like with the spider lady, when she's like, what are you doing? So obviously she can see who it is, but we can't. It's like, who is it? Who's helping? What's going on? And at the end, you're like, oh, it's you. Although that was a bit jarring as well, when they're both hung up in the bed, dying, and then suddenly they're in a church having sex, and it's like, is this a dream? And it's like, it better be, because I would explain it. I have no idea.
They were
what
feeling
happened.
so romantic. It was like a dream, because they literally went from being hung up and like cut to ribbons and there's blood going everywhere to like, we're in these beautiful white sheets and it's lovely, and we're in a church bathed in beautiful baby blue lights rather than all the harsh tones. And it was like, soft focus lighting. This is lovely. I'm glad it's lovely, because you've been through hell to get there.
Yeah. And it was all set up for them to get bow chicka bow bow and make a baby.
Yeah.
Because they are the only two of their kind who can make a baby together. And that baby is the peace treaty.
Yes.
This baby will bring the worlds together.
Yeah. But it's like, it's such a like a, the baby will save the world. They're basically giving birth to the next Jesus or something. But, and also the fact that like the conception is like they bang and she conceives like right then. It's like the first time they have sex, she conceives. But it's like at the same time, it's like the only way for these two worlds to like come together is to understand that they're not so different. And the way to do that is like, well, if they could have children together, then they are not like complete aliens and monsters. They're not different species. They're a compatible species. And if they're compatible, then they can coexist. Obviously, there's still going to be factions of demons that are like, screw that, we're demons. And humans that are like, ew, they're icky. I mean, considering like the Spider Woman and tentacle fingers, I'm like, yeah, some of them are icky. But not all of them.
I mean, it was a long payoff for the beginning bit, because the spider lady was like, no matter, I got what I needed. And then she scuttles off. And you're like, what did you need? What did you get? And then she mentions something later about the genetic makeup or something. It's like, what does that mean? And then eventually Giuseppe explains, oh, you two are the only two that can have a baby together. It's like, oh! So I had to wait till the end of the film to know what she was doing.
She wanted the DNA samples.
Exactly. Long payoff.
Yeah.
We got there in the end.
You've got to talk about obviously the most like climatic scene, and this was a clip that was used in like anime trailers and anime societies and anime promotional videos for ages. And I love the music when like Giuseppe looks up and goes, "It can't be," and you see Macie is in the sheet, and the music plays, and it's just gorgeously filmed, and the sheet is billowing, and then she does the nails into the long claws, and she's glowing, and then she slowly drifts down and just like chops like tentacle fingers into like pieces, like just completely like destroying him. It's such a beautiful moment. It's such like that's a conclusion. That's a scene. That's a still. That's a clip that, well, got replayed for generations.
A good end. And considering everything that poor girl went through, she had to be the one to give,
yes,
like the final blow type thing.
Yeah.
It's like her redemption.
Yes, and I like the fact that this is one of the things I've always liked about anime, and the fact it's like you can have a strong female character doesn't make they don't have to be like, oh, I'm a tough woman. She's like obviously got like frailty and difficulties, and yeah, she went through a lot and probably a bit more than she should have and would do in more modern genres. But at the end of the day, the film was about her, and she got to be the one that was the most powerful. She saved the day. She was important, and she got to beat the big boss. So the guy, like our usual playboy that would be if it was a Western thing, would be like, I'm the main character. He just kind of stood there and watched as she was like, well, now I'm powerful and amazing, and I will defeat this big threat.
Which is what you need in a film.
Yes.
Strong female characters.
Yeah.
And also it wasn't so obvious either. It wasn't like, this is the strong female character. Again, it was like not till the end that you're like, boom.
Yeah.
she gets her redemption. She gets to be the hero. She wasn't the whole way through going, haha, I can beat anyone and anything. Because like you say, she had her moments of weakness where she couldn't overcome certain people, and she was manipulated and went through hell. But still, she got to show at the end, actually, I can kick ass if I want to.
She's gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. But that image at the end when she comes down is something that I've never forgotten, and it's why this is one of my favourite films.
And that's Wicked City.
So good. It's just so good. It's just so Yoshiaki Kawajiri. It's just, and it was obviously like this was his first time he was given a feature-length film, and they were like, okay, and he's like, okay, I want to make something the darker tones with my style, and they're like, fine, you make whatever you want, we'll fund it, we'll let you do this, and obviously it went down really well, and he was able to move on and work on, more projects afterwards.
So what do you want to give it out of 5, Lizzie?
Ooh, see, it's hard to not just pile on love for just because I love it. So it's a slightly biased for tentacles, because just because I find it so visually stunning. I find it just gorgeous looking piece. I know the plot it's a product of its time and isn't overly original, but it's when watching it again, I still have that moment of going, that's just beautifully filmed, the compositions, the movement, and then you remember it's made in 1987, and this was all just hand drawn animated panels, so there's a lot of work went into it to create a really stunning and entertaining film.
I am also going to give it 4 tentacles. I did enjoy this one. I found that there wasn't really any bits that slowed it down, because sometimes you get those scenes where the person is contemplating things and it all slows right down and it's just scenes and scenes. And you're like, yeah, story. Sometimes that's nice, but sometimes you're like, story. But this, even if they did any of that, it didn't slow it down. It just felt like it was really, just good. I liked it. 4.
Good film.
I'm not explaining myself. 4.
4 what, though? What?
4 tentacles.
4 tentacles. Okay, we're going with They are so creepy, but it's like, oh, anime. Why has he got angry, bitey penis fingers? Because why not, I suppose? Why not?
Yep. Social media.
Ooh, well, I think mine's just going to have to come along on, weird tentacles. And then it grabs him and it's going to drag it back.
Squeaky, 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 squeaky. Chomp. A squeaky, 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 squeaky.
Exactly.
Just like that. And you have new social media. Look at the new social media.
Yes, updated. It's been a while. I don't know what I'm updating with, but woo!
New things. And my social media is coming in on billowing sheets. Ta-da.
Beautiful. Very dramatic.
Don't know how I'm going to do billowing sheets.
Yeah, I'm glad you have to animate that stuff, not me.
Just going to be a white thing just bobbing up and down. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. We all know that I take the easy route. It looks like a sheet. That's all I need. Say bye-bye, Lizzie.
So for now, this is a Weeaboo saying Johnny.
And this is a newbie saying, a squiggle, 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 chop. A squiggle, 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 squiggle. Ha ha!